Welcome to Roll and Release class. Today we're going to dive into the hips. And this class is designed, all of these roll and release classes are designed to help you become more free in your body. So today, let's work on the hips. The hips have been a sore spot for many of us, especially in recent years as things become more advanced. We have more comforts in the world. We tend to sit more and things are more automated, so we're actually doing less and less. So whether you commute long hours or you sit at your desk long hours or on your couch long hours, this is very crucial so that you can function well in the world. It's not about showing off crazy ranges of motion on Instagram. It's really about you feeling good in your body and doing all the daily tasks that you need to do easily and maybe even enjoyably. For me, I'm a dad with one on the way. I have one child who is almost 2 years old, so he's running and jumping and climbing and playing and wrestling. So for me to get up and down, especially me being 6'3", me getting down to his level is crucial for my hips to be on point. Also, I'm an athlete and I just like to lift and all these good stuff. If I have bad hips, not only am I not able to do the things I love and want to do, but also my posture and all these other things will start to catch up to me. So you've come to the right place if you're trying to dive into the hips. We're gonna go over a few different parts on this class. So first we're gonna do a little test just to see how our hips are feeling today before we get any further. Then we're gonna grab a foam roller. So if you don't have a foam roller nearby, either one of these bad boys or even a ball of some kind like a tennis ball or a trigger point ball, that will work after we roll out. So we're kind of releasing and breaking anything up that's tight, scar tissue, trigger points, all that good stuff. After we do that, we're gonna do some strengthening moves. And then after that, we will stretch. I have this block just because you never know, a block could come in handy. So we'll stretch. So we roll, we mobilize with some strength, moving through fuller ranges of motion while also adding strength to our hips, so we're not just loosening and we're just lackadaisical with our posture and hips. We want to strengthen in full range of motion. And then after that, we'll stretch and release deeper into the hips. Once we finish all of that, we'll come back to our first test just to see how we felt, see the difference. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start with our first test. So this is a 90-degree hip flow. This is one of my favorites, just to open everything up around the hip sockets and just to check in to see how things are feeling today. So I'm gonna start with 90-degree angles in my feet, keeping my toes off of the floor, just heels down, hands behind myself if I need the support. If not, you can go Bluetooth mode, which is just hands-free. Make sure your posture is comfortable and upright. So from this position, I'm rolling to one side as much as I can, staying upright as much as possible. And then I open up and roll to the other side. So let's go ahead and do this together. We're gonna go for about 30 seconds just to check in, nice and slow. Make sure you're not forcing your legs down. This is just a test to see how we're feeling. So if your legs are not able to go all the way down, you're stuck here, that's okay. Just mental note, bookmark that, and we'll see how we feel when we come back. Okay, let's go. Let's just do one more time on each side just to feel it out. With most of these things today, you can go longer, so if you want to ever just pause the video and keep going, feel free. Good. Okay. So again, take that bookmark, that mental snapshot of your hips, how we started today. And then let's grab your foam rolling device. This bad boy has ridges in it, so it kind of helps. They're supposed to resemble knuckles and fingers and whatnot. At least that's what I was told. Either way, this is a really good one. I think the company is Trigger Point or tptherapy.com. I'm not affiliated, but I do love their products. So we are actually gonna start with this bad boy flat on the floor. If you have just a ball, that's fine, use same thing. And now I'm going to work on my glutes first, my glutes and my upper hip. So right around the waistband, so right under your hip bone in the back. You can feel that ridge, and then you just kind of feel right under it, right where the muscle starts to kind of go into the glute, from the hip to the glute. So we're going to work all around there. For the sake of the video, trying to not make it too long, we're just going to do one trigger point on each muscle group. So I'm going to do the right and the left side, just one trigger point. I'll tell you what I mean. So you're sitting on your roller or your ball. Use your hands to adjust the pressure. So the less pressure in the hands, the more pressure into your roller. Now you can start here. So I'm just kind of sitting on my right cheek, and then I roll over onto the right cheek a little more. And then from there I scan the upper hip area and see what I feel. See if I can find any trigger points. The way you'll know if you found a trigger point is it's pretty painful. You might even feel a bump or a knot. That's just a bundle of nerves, connective tissue, and muscle that's just all grouped together that we need to break up. And it's a painful breakup, just like most breakups. So if you want to dive deeper, instead of just leaning onto that side, you probably feel something. If you want to dive deeper and see, you can also figure four that same side ankle over the other knee. So my right cheek is down, I bring my right ankle over the left knee, that exposes the glute a little bit more, and then I'm exploring. So just by me doing that, it opens up the muscle more, and I definitely feel it now. So once you found that trigger point, we're gonna pause there for 30 seconds. So go ahead and scan. If you have it, let's just sit there. And we're just sitting there on that. I found my trigger point, 30 seconds. The reason we don't just keep rolling back and forth is because, for one, you don't have knots and sore spots every single spot. Some muscles are really tender and most of the muscle might be sore, but for the most part, huge scanning is just kind of brushing over the surface. We want to dive deep and really release those trigger points. So by us just sitting and settling in and relaxing as much as possible on that trigger point, we are actually undoing those knots slowly but surely. Let's take a few more breaths. In general, you want to go at least 30 seconds on each trigger point, if not longer. So if you want to go longer or find a different spot on this same side of your butt cheek, you can pause the video and dive deeper. I'm going to go ahead and switch sides. So just to show now, using my other device, my other rolling device, which happens to be probably my favorite piece of equipment that I own in terms of fitness equipment. Woo! Yeah. Again, the harder the roller, especially if you're using a ball, it is a lot more invasive. But it feels really good. So just make sure you're not torturing yourself. It should be right on the threshold of almost too much pain, but still feels a little good. So we're gonna go for about another 20 seconds on this trigger point. Yeah, right in there, man. I've been doing a lot of deadlifts and what else did I do? Did some Romanian deadlifts, I did some front squats earlier, and then yesterday I actually helped my cousin move out of his apartment, which required moving big, heavy, awkward objects off of the second floor, which thankfully I'm fit to do it, but yeah, rolling out the next day is, I'll say it's magical. Oh man, okay. Let's move on. Again, pause the video and do more trigger points on the glutes and hips if you'd like. Now we're gonna move on to our TFL. So our TFL, yep, I got pockets today. So right at the top of my pocket, right here, or right under your waistband if you're wearing pants, or if you're naked, this hip bone, got your hip bone, you go about an inch or two down from there, and you may have to go maybe inside this way about a ½ inch. So when you're in a position like me, where I'm about to roll on this hip, let's go on this side. So I'm gonna go on this side, bam, still on that same spot. I'm keeping this knee bent for now. And you'll know that you're in the TFL, for one, it's usually super tender. And also, it's a little like almost like a little meatball on your hip, like it's a little meaty part right by that hip pocket. Right here, okay, I found it. Now you can play with bending that knee that on the same leg that you're rolling to see where you feel it more. And then we're gonna hold, once you found something tender, we're holding for 30 seconds. If you have the option to use a roller or a ball, if you have both, and you're not feeling much on the roller, then go ahead and move to the ball. The ball will get a little deeper than the roller. So let's go for another 20 seconds. So yeah, foam rolling and massage and all that good stuff is really important, not just for athletes and not just for therapy, but it's really good just day to day. Most of the time, even me, like I'm on my feet a lot, but I do spend time sitting down for chunks of the day, you know, if I'm doing work or doing some other stuff. But the more inactive we are, our fascia, our connected, a layer of, like a sheath of connective tissue, go ahead and relax on that TFL, we're gonna switch sides. A sheath of that connective tissue will start to create more and more thin layers until it gets thicker and thicker, until it's almost like a lamination of that muscle, which makes it stiff, makes it painful, and makes it just harder to move and do things. And if you're stiff and you are into training for strength and all that good stuff, you're limiting what is available to be worked. So if I'm limited in a range of motion, I can't work deeper ranges of motion, which will get deeper parts of my muscles and different parts of my muscles. So it's very important just day to day to actually help you feel and stay younger in your body. So now I'm gonna use the ball on the other TFL. So again, finding that hip pocket, bam, found the meaty part of that corner of my hip. Ooh, yes, yes, yes. 30 seconds once you found that. Start it now. I know it's hard to see the ball, but just make sure it's at that top kind of corner of your hip, top of your hip pocket. Man. And while you're rolling, make sure that you're trying to relax your muscles as much as you can. It's natural that your body wants to kind of seize up a little because it's not always the most pleasant feeling. So your body almost wants to defend itself. So use your breath to relax deeper onto the ball. Every time you exhale, relax a little more onto the ball. All right, that's about 30 seconds. I'm gonna move on to one more body part, and then we'll get into our mobility techniques. So now I'm gonna move into my hip flexor, which is right in the front. So instead of moving in this corner, it's just right about like 4 inches to the inside, closer to the groin. Hip flexor is really responsible for us walking forward, jumping, running, and just moving in general, lifting our knee. So when we're sitting for long periods of time and our hip is in that shortened position, so we're here, it's not only just shortened, it's getting tighter, but it's also getting weaker. So what we want to do before we kind of work on our hip flexors is to mobilize and release our hip flexors a little bit. So straight down onto the front of my hip flexor. Again, pick your tool of choice, your weapon of choice, whether it be the roller or the ball. Good. Once you found something, it might have to go down a little bit towards the quad or up a little closer to the hip bone. Once you found your trigger point, we're gonna hold that for 30 seconds. Good, let's hold that spot for another 10. Three, two, and one. Good, okay. Slowly let yourself up, switch sides if you're using the roller, if you're using the ball. Find that hip flexor. So I'm just shift so you can see. Bam. So this hip for me really tends to be tender because when I was in high school, my senior year playing football, right before the season started, I partially tore my hip flexor and my psoas, all that good stuff. And, you know, I actually lost a lot of scholarship opportunities from there, which I bring that up because it really made me want to pay attention more to having a well-functioning body, not just a strong, super strong athletic body, but to actually take care of my body more and do things like this. It's really important. So once you have that trigger point, we're gonna hold for another 20 seconds. Another beautiful thing about foam rolling is if you're someone who loves getting massages but don't always have the money for one, or you're in between massage appointments and you still want to get something loosened up, man, this is a free way to just open yourself up. You could be watching your favorite show in the comfort of your own home. You could be outside, you know. So this is a good option also just for a general massage. Yeah, right in there. Okay, so we're gonna move on now to some mobility work. So put your stuff to the side. I'll meet you in a hands and knees position. So a tabletop position, let's keep those toes untucked for now. Hands under the shoulders, knees under your hips. We're gonna do some hip circles. So now just exploring this range of motion while also strengthening our hip in a well-rounded way. We're gonna start with a donkey kick. So my heel goes up. As I move through this circle, by the way, before I start, I wanna keep at least that glute. So if I'm moving my right hip first, my right leg first, you wanna keep that whole hip section, glute section pretty activated. So squeezing that cheek, and you're gonna lift into a donkey kick, move into a fire hydrant, keeping the knee high and to the side, all the way towards your elbow and then back. Key here is to not arch the back on the donkey, so keep your belly button tucked in a little bit. Also, to not open your hips super wide and lose your hip level, your hip balance as you go into fire hydrant. So it wants to be with a flat back, high as you can, keeping the flat back. Fire hydrant, keep your hips level to your mat, to your floor, while working your knee to as high as it can on the side. So it's that combination of form and freedom. So let's do 2 more. I would do at least 5, maybe 10 to 12 on each side. All right, let's switch sides. So now my left foot, again, same thing, squeezing my hip and glute, keeping my core a little tucked, hips level as I move and throughout my circle. So you go up, side, and back down. Good. Let's do a few more of those together. Good. Good. I'll do 2 more. And if you'd like to do more and you want to continue flowing together, pause the video for a second. Good. Okay. So now we're going to move into bridges. So rolling down onto my back. My feet are just out of reach from my fingers. Now, keeping my chin out of my chest, I'm lifting my hips towards the sky, squeezing my butt. It's really good for the lower back and hamstrings as well. But as you notice, when you're in this bridge position, your hips have just lengthened, your hip flexors have just found more length, which is great. It's what we want. And we lower back down and with control. So let's do about 5 more of those. We're just gonna go up, pause for a second, squeeze your butt, and slowly release down. Good. All the way up. And all the way back down. 3 more of those. Squeeze at the top. Lengthen those hip flexors. Lower all the way down. Good. 2 more of those. Up a little higher. Chin out of your chest. Lower down with control. 1 more time. Through the feet. Squeeze your butt and lower all the way down. Good. Okay. So that was just a couple of strengthening moves. There's many things we can do for our hips in terms of rolling out, in terms of mobility work and stretching. But just for the sake of keeping this video realistic, simple, and bite-sized, we're just gonna move on now to our stretches. So first one we're gonna work on is our figure 4. So what I'm gonna do is bring this right ankle over the top of the left knee. Now I'm using my hands to go around my left leg. I either grab my hamstring or I grab my shin. Keeping my head down. You can use your block under you if you want to create a little headrest. I don't know where my block is. Oh, it's over there, hiding behind my roller. So once you're in this figure 4, we're gonna take 5 big breaths. Big inhales, fill up the belly, and as you exhale, we're drawing that knee in towards our chest. So 5 big breaths. If you're not able to do figure 4 for whatever reason, you can just cradle the outside of your foot with your left hand, cradle the outside of your right knee with your right hand, and do the same thing as you exhale. Bring that shin and that calf a little closer to your body. Move back into figure 4. Let's continue. Let's do 3 more breaths wherever you are. The more you can relax on your exhales especially, the more we're going to be able to release. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides. Figure 4 or cradle. 5 big breaths. So this is just the first of many roll and release classes, and I hope to do these in person one day. But in the meantime, we want to work different body parts, and even if we go back to the same body parts later, so if we do a hip class later, it'll be different moves, different techniques. And as you get the hang of rolling and stretching and mobilizing on your own, it's going to add so much value to your life, so much more freedom in your body. Let's take 2 more breaths. This feels really good. Good. Okay. Let's move on. Stretch our hip flexor out. So that was kind of in that upper glute and upper hip, the rear hip area. So now we're gonna move into a low lunge position where I'm just sticking out I'm gonna put my left foot forward, starting off with my left heel right under my left knee, my right knee right under my right hip. And now as I inhale, I shift forward, and then I just continue to breathe normally. So in this low lunge, we want to make sure we're not arched back. We want to make sure our tailbone is tucked under just a little bit. Squeeze that same side butt cheek that you're stretching on the hip. So my right side hip I'm stretching, squeeze that right butt cheek. Should feel something nice and delicious right there. So we're gonna hold that with the option to hook shot the arm over the head. So I'm bringing and draping my right arm over my head just so that I expose more of the side body. And then the more I kind of lean slightly to the left, bend over to the left side, then I stretch a little deeper into my hip flexor, also my TFL. So we're just gonna sit here, stretch a little more for about another 15 seconds. When you're stretching, you wanna go, for the sake of these kind of stretches to really open things up, ideally at least 45 seconds, if not longer. Again, just like I say with yoga, make it feel good, make your practice feel good, make your mobility training and mobility practices feel good as well. Let's take a couple more breaths here. Beautiful. Okay. Take your time, switch sides. Actually, I'm just gonna roll, turn this way. So now we're in our left hip flexor, if you just did the right. Okay, so make sure you're set up before you start, tailbone tucked, left glute engaged on that long left hip. Feel that stretch before you drape or hook shot your arm over your head. And then the optional hook shot with a slight twist to the right, slight bend to the right. So you really open the ribs, the lats, the hips, everything connected to those hips. Another important piece, we're gonna take a few more breaths here. Another important piece is to not just do these moves and then just go back to sitting down. It's fine, you know, it's not like we're never gonna sit down again. But what's really important is to revisit those things that might have given you trouble in your hips. Maybe it was squatting down to guard in your plot, or maybe getting in and out of your car, getting out of bed, all that good stuff. Just notice and be more aware of how your body feels the more you practice these mobility techniques. Okay, so go ahead and relax from your low lunge. We're gonna come back to a seated position and revisit our 90-degree hip flow, which we started with, just to check in. See how your hips are feeling. Okay, so again, find your 90-degree angles, either hands behind or Bluetooth mode, and we're just going side to side. Check it out. And just notice the difference. It might be subtle. So for me, like when we started this video, I was already able to bring both knees down, but the fluidity in which I'm able to transition right here and the ease of bringing my legs down is a lot greater than when I started. It's also first thing in the morning, since it's peak heat wave in Sacramento, so I'm doing this early, so I'm not out here cooking myself in my hips. So, you know, if you're waking up first thing in the morning, give yourself a little grace. Your body will probably be a little stiffer just because you were just in that sleeping position. Okay, let's go one more time each way. See what things feel like. All right, there you have it. This was basically episode 1 of our roll and release classes. We'll do more body parts all throughout the full body, from head to toe. So just wanted to start with the hips because that seems to be a big sore spot, like I said, for most of us. So continue to take care of your hips, Continue to practice this flow. Again, pause the video as much as you want to just so that you can really dive deeper. I recommend at least 2 to 3 trigger points that you work on for 30 seconds each on each body part. So if you're working the hip flexor, find maybe 3 different spots around that hip flexor and spend about 30 seconds on each hip flexor. And one more point before I let you go is when you're rolling, especially in the legs, especially as in the inner thighs, you want to make sure you stay away from the veins and the arteries. If you're rolling on a ball and you're in that hip flexor and you feel a pulse, a strong pulse or a throb around the ball in your hip, it's a good chance you're on an artery or a vein. We want to stay clear from any of that. So just adjust it, make sure you're not feeling that throb anymore, and move on. Please let me know if you have questions. I'm here for you to help along your path. Other than that, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you on the next video.